later. I've been doing these lives to connect with you guys and hang out, and it's been a lot of fun. I've done several. Trying to figure out the lighting on my little ring. Is it better off? Let's see. Apparently lighting is really important on YouTube. Oh, this is Kitty. So I've been doing these lives and hanging out with you guys. And hey, Angela John, Angela John. I hope I'm saying that right. Can I just say Angel? It's good to see you. Eric and I last time talked about maybe talking about the guilt and shame that you feel with bipolar disorder. So maybe that could be a topic for today. I've also, how are you, Angel and Angel E. John? Angel E. John. Angel? Okay, so I'm assuming the yes is too. I can call you Angel. How are you? I hope you're good. But yes, I just came from the dog park where I was talking to a lady who had shared with me that she had, hi, somebody new is there. If you are not subscribed to the channel, I'm Steph. I have bipolar disorder and I am talking about living with bipolar disorder. And today we're talking hopefully about shame and guilt and medication again, hopefully. Manic for over a month. That's no good. You should take medication. Are you on medication? Is your medication not working? What's the deal? Angel. I think there's a short delay. If you're just tuning in, my name is Steph. I have bipolar disorder and we're talking about bipolar disorder today and any questions you might have. If you are subscribed, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So Angel said that they've been manic for over a month. So that's, I don't know when I'm manic. I'm on it, never miss. Okay, so maybe the medication is how you are able to know that you're manic. Maybe that's helping. Or maybe you might need to see a doctor and talk about possibly changing your medication. Hi, Sheena. Hello, you're kidnapped. Hi, Erin. Hello. Hi, guys. If you are just tuning in, we're talking about living with bipolar disorder and some of the symptoms that come along with living with bipolar disorder. Last time I talked to Eric, who I don't know if he's going to be able to show up in mod or not. If not, I'm going to have to be doing hi from India. Kidnapped. I don't know what that means. Cleaning and excessively spending. Oh, so I've been talking to Angel, who said Angel's been in mania for a month, but they are on medication. Cleaning, it says, how do you support loved ones with bipolar? Hi, Misa. Hi, Amit. No, I'm not a doctor. I am somebody who is living with bipolar disorder, who was diagnosed pretty late in life. So I'm on medication now. I advocate for medication. Medication is a necessity for people living with bipolar disorder. So today we were going to be talking about shame and guilt. And I'm waiting. Hopefully Eric can come today. Eric, where are you? No, I'm just kidding. So with bipolar disorder, if you don't know what bipolar disorder is, let me just explain. Bipolar disorder is extreme highs and extreme lows, and they're mood episodes. And so somebody can go from feeling extremely on top of the world to feeling like they don't want to be in the world anymore. And then there can be periods without very many symptoms at all. So that's kind of what bipolar disorder is. There's two different types of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1, a person will experience hypomania, and bipolar 2, somebody will also experience hypomania. But with bipolar 1, hypomania can go beyond that into mania and sometimes psychosis for some of us. Okay. Sorry guys, I have to moderate my own chat for right now. So, what is hypomania? Misa, hypomania is okay. So hypomania is like when you have all this energy. It's kind of like being like on drugs almost. Like it's your mood gets incredibly elevated. You have an inflated sense of self-worth. You tend to think that you make a lot of plans for things that you might never, like projects. You set up all these different projects and you never finish them. You sometimes can furiously clean. But you're in an elated state, and that's why it's called hypomania. It's like you're hyper. Um, Ada, hi Ada, it's good to see you too. Hi Mike. AP. We're talking about bipolar disorder. We're not talking about things like my age or where I've been, where I live, or things like that. Just FYI. So yeah, so what was I saying about I was explaining hypomania. Hopefully that explains it. Hypomania is extreme highs and extreme lows, and a person might talk really fast. Sometimes they can be mean. Sometimes they can experience in mixed episodes where you're really hyper but also depressed at the same time. Hello, can I be mod? I subscribe if I do. I actually have to add somebody as a moderator separate. Oh my God, Misa, if you think you might be bipolar, there is a test on the internet that you can take if you just like type into Google test for bipolar disorder. There's are multiple tests and you can take one, and if you score that you have bipolar disorder, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have bipolar disorder, but that means you have to see a doctor and potentially get see if that's an accurate diagnosis for you. And if so, there is treatment for that, so that should be good news. There's a lot of stigma surrounding medication, but that is what we need for bipolar disorder. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. Do you get stages where you don't feel high or low, like you just feel normal? Hi, Sarah. I'm going to answer that in just a second. Let me just hide this person. Okay. Hi, France. Why you're so bright? You think I should turn it down? Is that better? You guys, does this look better? Somebody's complaining about the light. I could get a PW card. I don't know what that means. Oh, you're talking about I feel both peak and valley within the same day, peak after the first coffee and valley at the end. Okay, so somebody asked if you're bipolar, do you ever have periods of normal where you're not feeling really high or really low? And the answer is yes. Bipolar disorder is cyclical, so you can have months or even years without symptoms. At least major symptoms. Minor symptoms, if you've been living with bipolar disorder, you likely don't even know that the minor symptoms are symptoms. A lot of times, like for me personally, my experience growing up with bipolar and not knowing that I had bipolar, I thought a lot of my outbursts were my personality, and that was just who I was. It wasn't until much, much later in life when I got diagnosed that I realized some of my angry outbursts were related to a symptom of bipolar disorder. I have extreme mood swings to feeling suicidal and then so happy at like 3 in the morning. That is typical bipolar disorder symptoms. Not sleeping is another symptom. If you have bipolar disorder and you get super amped up, you might feel the need to not sleep as much. Yes, the brain is a very strange thing. Hey, Jess. Thank the universe for periods of stability. Yeah. Yes, thank the universe for periods of stability for normalcy. I'm not diagnosed. So for anyone that might have bipolar disorder, and you think you might have bipolar disorder, definitely it doesn't hurt at all to take a test online, and figuring out your mental health should always be number one, because that's the most important organ in our body, right? So Jess is on the chat, you guys. She has a channel too. Oh, cool. You're here, Eric. Hey. So Eric is here, so he'll probably mod now. So that'll be good. Then I won't be so panicked. Thank John. How do I tell my parents and my auntie is sexual harassment when they are not home? Tetchy, John, I have no idea. I that sounds like a horrible situation. But I would eliminate yourself from that situation. Maybe get a lock on your door and lock yourself in your room. So Eric was brought up last time we were doing the live. We were going to talk about shame and guilt with bipolar disorder, which I've just kind of been answering the questions so far. But in regards to shame and guilt, I think that kind of ties into something that I have. Well, let me just say, okay. So with bipolar disorder, we can have these extreme mood episodes, right? And we do things in these episodes that are really awful. Like we can be really mean to people, say hurtful things, accuse people that love us of horrible things, and just behave completely uncharacteristic of ourselves. We can also do things that we are completely unaware of, like in a blackout state, and then find out later when we are when we come out of that episode and we get treatment and we're back into a period of normalcy. Then in that time, we may find out things that we did while we were in mania or hypomania or psychosis. And it is a really hard feeling to sit with. You can feel really shameful. You feel guilty about the way that you've treated people. It is a huge part of bipolar disorder. A lot of times people will think that people with bipolar disorder don't have any feelings for those around them, and that they are just using their mental illness as an excuse, that they are completely self-centered and self-absorbed and don't care about anyone but themselves. And this can be like a legitimate feeling that people have based on watching somebody in a manic episode, because there are things like delusions of grandeur where you do think everything is about you, and it's a paranoia and it's a horrible feeling. But hi Ganja. Thank for your help. I will go to the doctor. You're welcome, Misa. Sorry, so I was gonna say Jess is in the chat. She has a channel too about bipolar disorder if you guys want to go. It's our bipolar, O-U-R bipolar. Eric's busy in the chat. Shame and grief. Hi Renee. Shame and grief. Definitely. I get at least one flashback a day, bang, out of nowhere many times from years ago. Oh, I feel you, dude, totally. So what Renee is saying is also something that I think almost everyone with bipolar disorder experiences, and that is flashbacks from when we were in a state of mania or psychosis and things that we have potentially done. This happens to me so often that it would be difficult for me to pinpoint the flashbacks that I had, say, yesterday. It's not something that I want to physically do and even think about, because I deal with it so often. So I don't even want to construct what flashback did I have yesterday, because they happen all the time. And it really sucks. With flashbacks. Does your appetite fluctuate? Sarah asked if my appetite. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Jess and I have done videos together. We've done lives together. So I think there's one on my channel if you're interested in watching it. We talked about a lot of topics as it relates to bipolar. But if you're just tuning in, we're talking about shame and guilt with bipolar disorder and flashbacks, finding out that you did things that you don't remember doing. Sometimes my husband will tell me things that I've done in psychosis, and every time he does, it's like my stomach drops, and like I just feel completely humiliated and ashamed, and I just feel like it's so unfair that I have to experience that, or that anyone with bipolar disorder has to experience that, because we didn't ask for it. We didn't do anything to it's not like, not to say anything bad about people who drink, but it's not like we went out and drank and did a bunch of things and blacked out. Although alcoholism can be a disease in itself, we didn't do anything to cause our bipolar. It just happened, and then we have these symptoms, and they make us do things that we would never ever do. So when you come out of it, it's just so, you're already in a huge low. So I think it's important for any loved one to know that when someone you care about comes out of their episode of bipolar mania, and they're way up here, and they've been they've been behaving completely irrational, angry, not themselves, doing things that don't, spending money excessively, behaving erratically, making quick decisions without thinking about the consequences. Those are symptoms of bipolar disorder. Flashbacks, it's hard. Yeah, we were talking about flashbacks. It's like being drunk for months, but ADD, amphetamine, and LSD as well. Hi, Mad Men. Eric has like the perfect analogy for for mania, because things, well, for I think if you experience psychosis, then you kind of feel like you can relate to the LSD comment in regards to bipolar disorder. So greetings, Madman. Yeah. So the shame and guilt is gnarly. I really wanted to talk about something today, though, because and if anybody has anything to say about shame and guilt, please add to the conversation. But I saw this video on a short on Instagram yesterday, and what it was is that the lady says, "Tell me your thoughts," and they're showing this guy who is presenting symptoms. He's going to all these different therapists or psychiatrists, and he's telling them his symptoms, and they're not showing what he's telling the psychiatrist. They're just showing, in this video, they're quick clips, they're showing a guy go to a doctor and be diagnosed with bipolar, and then go to a doctor and then be diagnosed with ADHD, and then go to a doctor and be diagnosed with depression. And so they're showing how this, and then they mention all these drugs, and it's all cut together very strategically. So what it shows, what is not taken away from it, what's taken away from the video, is they're showing this guy, he's going to all these different psychiatrists, he's getting all these different diagnoses, he's getting all these recommended medications. And what they don't say in the video, what the video is meant to convey is that, or the way it comes across like it's meant to convey, that all doctors do is prescribe medications. They're all full of crap. They all don't know what the hell they're talking about. Look, you can't even get two to agree. That's the way the video comes across. And so if you go down to the comments in the video, it says, doctors are just drug dealers. Oh, there goes, and this is a perfect example of big pharma being, so there's all these negative comments about the medication, and about how psychiatrists are horrible people. And what that video showed is actually a very accurate picture of what it's like to get diagnosed with something like bipolar disorder. It's very difficult to get diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And it is true that you may go to one doctor and a different doctor will prescribe you something totally different. It is true that you might go to a doctor, them give you a diagnosis of bipolar, go to a different doctor and them give you a diagnosis of depression. It is true that they will have 1,000 different medications that they might mention to you, or say that you, or suggest that you take. All of these things are true. However, and I wish it wasn't that way. I wish there was some quick screening test where you could determine if you're bipolar. But a lot of times when we go to psychiatrists and we talk to psychiatrists, we don't even know how to convey our symptoms. It's really difficult for someone who experiences mania to explain it to a doctor, to even know how to verbalize that. So it's difficult for the doctors to make the diagnosis, and there's so many different medications, and everyone is different, so not every medication is going to be the same for everyone. So while what the video conveyed, if you explain it all, it's true, but but the message that is sent is that all doctors are full of it. Nobody really need. Oh, and then one of the comments on the video was, well, funny how none of these doctors recommended diet and exercise. And then there was like a whole chain launching into exercise and diet being a cure for whatever this person was experiencing. Anyway, so I saw that, and I wanted to briefly talk about it and see if you guys had any thoughts on it. But I want to answer a couple of questions. Shame and grief, definitely. I get at least one flashback. Sporadic control of chaotic situation life. Hi, Mike A. I am good. Does your Sarah asked, does your appetite fluctuate? Absolutely. When I get really depressed, I tend to overeat. When I am happy and busy, I tend to undereat and forget to eat or intentionally starve myself. I have food issues aside from that, but definitely bipolar disorder has affected my appetite. Anxiety, I will not want to eat at all if I'm experiencing anxiety, but depression is really where I get lazy and sometimes either can't eat or eat far too much. Hi, James. I'm okay. Hey, from Bangalore, just popped up and felt like a like. Hi, Ganesh. Ganesh, that's a cool name. If you are bipolar, then there is no way out of dealing with medication. Eric said that, yes, you have to take medication. Absolutely. Do you have any? Oh, do I have any? Okay, so Eric asked if I have any methods to get away, to get rid of shame and flashbacks to go away. I don't really, but, oh, I'm sorry, Kenton, type it again. If I miss your comment, just type it again. Because I'm totally not doing it unintentional. Ada, are you still there? I was thinking about you. You were the one that was saying you might get deported, right? Oh, Jesus. Okay. I think I'll leave that. You missed my comment. I don't know what that means, Kenton. But I'm assuming it means something bad. So that's why you got deleted. Thank you, Eric. Eric's modding you guys. Say thank you to him. He keeps all the ick stuff out of there. But yeah, okay, so methods for getting rid of the flashbacks. And I think probably the biggest thing that helps me with my bipolar, above all, besides taking medication and besides having an incredible support, so the thing that I do for myself that helps me the most with my mental illness is exercise. Yoga has completely changed my life, and sometimes it's really hard to get up and go, but if I do go to yoga, my symptoms are less. I have fewer symptoms. If I go for a run for, a mile or whatever, I have fewer symptoms of bipolar disorder in the day-to-day. When I was in college, I was at the gym every single day, and it's no wonder I didn't have very bad bipolar symptoms when I was in school, because I was extremely active. But when I'm not active and when I'm not doing these things, I do experience a lot more depression. And it's just really, exercise is really, really important. But in terms of like the flash, I think generally like feeling better generally, then that helps with the flashbacks. I did have really bad a couple years ago. It gets better. A couple years ago, I had, 7 years ago, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I was also diagnosed with PTSD. So I was put on something called prazosin because I was having, gross, something's on my pants. I was having night sweats. So I would have nightmares that were so terrible that I would wake up and my clothes would be completely wet because I sweat through them, and there would be like huge wet spot on my bed because I sweated so much. So that was a really hard time. I'm not going through that right now, and I don't have night sweats right now. If I were to have a really stressful situation in my life, then the night sweats could potentially come back. But I'm not currently on any medication for PTSD. Yay, that's good news. My exercise is doing great jobs with that. But the flashbacks do get better. They still come and you still see them all the time, but you get to a point to where you're just watching them happen and you're not experiencing any feeling with them, because the flashbacks used to be so powerful that when they would happen, it would physically affect my mood and drag me down. And it would make the day a lot harder. Now, when I get the flashbacks, it's super annoying and it still happens a lot. And if I'm super stressed out, it's different. But on the normal day to day, when my medication's working, when I'm living life and I'm feeling good, then my flashbacks are totally different. I can just, it's like you're watching it and you don't really feel that, you're not really feeling anything anyway about it. And you're able to say, okay, this is now, that's back then, that sucked. And you don't really think about it too much. Yes, better days will come. What's your opinion of psychedelics? I heard psychologists can determine if you have mental illness based on your handwriting, meaning you handwriting style changes. Hi, X question. I have never heard that. I think it's a little bit more difficult than that to decide if someone's bipolar. It would be a dream if it was that simple to look at handwriting styles. Hold on, my dog is going mental. Can you guys see him? Shingles on flashbacks. I don't know what that means. What do you mean shingles on? Hi, Delta. So my opinion of psychedelics is if you have bipolar disorder, you should stay far away from psychedelics, very far away, because they affect your brain and your brain is already a little bit wonky with the way that it can work. So avoid psychedelics at all cost. But I don't know what shingles on flashbacks is. And Renee said, it's so hard to exercise when you can barely get out of bed. It's a vicious cycle. Yes, I think I've talked about it before, but there was this one time where I was so down and I was like, I have to pull myself out of this. Like, I was just laying in bed all day and I put my clothes on, went to go for a run, ran like 2 steps and like physically couldn't do it and just went back home. So yeah, when you're in a major depression, it's almost impossible. It is impossible to get up and exercise if you're deep in depression and you can't even get out of bed. But if it's those moments that when you can get out of bed and when things are going well, if you're exercising and trying to eat right during that time, you're going to feel significantly better. Brain is spicy. Jess, you're funny. Shingles on the face. I don't really know what shingles are, but no. What about microdosing? I'm not bipolar, but I was very depressed and microdosing helped me a bit. So people are trying alternative methods to treating bipolar disorder. Like some people are trying ketamine, some people are trying microdosing psilocybin, which is mushrooms. That is something, hi Sweden, that is something that is up to you. But I wouldn't go that route unless you are having, the thing is that with medication, we've tested it for years and years and years, and we know that it works. And with some of the medications, we know how it works. But there isn't a ton of research on using ketamine and using mushrooms. That's in the new stages of learning about addressing mental illness with those things. So going to that as your first route, I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest seeing a doctor and getting on some medication. If you are nervous about medication, you can do all your research about it. It's something that will help you. You don't have to suffer. So bipolar disorder, we need to take medication. That is really important. There's a lot of stigma around medication, but we just have to take it. Have you tried Wellbutrin? Sarah, I tried Wellbutrin, but not for bipolar disorder. And I tried it for something to quit smoking in college. And I was allergic. So I don't really know how that, and I think that's an SSRI. With bipolar 1, I don't take SSRIs. I take a mood stabilizer and I would take an antipsychotic. But because I'm bipolar 1, I wouldn't be prescribed an SSRI. Because an SSRI can make somebody with bipolar 1 go into psychosis. I generally don't know. Alexandra, thank you for your questions about depression. What I can tell you about bipolar disorder depression, and people who don't have bipolar disorder can get severe depression too. You don't have to have bipolar disorder to experience hopelessness, and depression and feelings of wanting to end your own life. You don't have to have bipolar to experience those things. If you have bipolar disorder, you are much more likely to experience those things, but you don't have to have a mental illness to feel that way. But there's being sad and there's depressed, and then there's being depressed where you physically cannot move, and that is usually major depression or bipolar depression. Are you sensitive to horror movies? That's a really great question. Derek asked if I'm sensitive to horror movies. Hold on one sec. Okay, I wanted to respond to. Okay, so first the horror movies. Yes. Yes, I'm very sensitive to movies. Particularly like if somebody's having a panic attack on TV, that is triggering and can make me really physically feel upset, especially because I have extreme empathy. Frederick asked if there's anything called tripolar. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I do sense and connect on things and everything. Hi, Kenny. How does your doctor know if you are bipolar? I haven't yet to see or believe a good psychiatrist. Justin, a doctor wouldn't know if you're bipolar unless you're explaining your symptoms to them. And typically, symptoms of bipolar will include the major mood episodes or extreme depression. I think it's fairly easy to determine if you go to your doctor saying things like, I didn't sleep for 3 days all of a sudden out of nowhere, and then I ended up barefoot walking downtown. It's pretty easy for a doctor to decipher that you might have a psychotic illness at that point. But it's difficult for doctors to determine if you're bipolar if you haven't had a major mood episode or a major episode of depression. And it's also really difficult to explain your symptoms to a doctor. So I think if you think you might be bipolar, you just do as much research as you can about it, take an online test, and then if you see a doctor, ask them what do you think my diagnosis is, and if they don't give you the answer that you want, see another doctor. Happy birthday, Bruno. But yeah, with bipolar disorder, you want to try and avoid things that can be triggering, and violence can definitely be triggering for a lot of people. Horror movies can definitely be triggering. Situations that might draw up flashbacks, movie scenes can be super triggering. The thing about bipolar disorder, just from somebody who has bipolar disorder, and I don't know if you can relate or not, but I've been living with bipolar disorder for a really long time, and for me, I noticed that I know I feel things much more than other people feel it, and I wonder what that's like to not feel things so intensely. Um, but I forgot where I was going with that. But When you feel so much about the world, when you feel everything so much, and you have intense emotions all the time, I think in the things that you can control, it would be wise, it would be helpful to manage the things that you can control. For example, um, watching things that could be triggering on TV, putting yourself in situations that are triggering, like doing public speaking when you're in the middle of when you're in an extreme low. Um, well, let me catch up. Justin, another thing that you might want to consider, if you're feeling depressed and you have no reason to be depressed, or you feel like, hey, why am I depressed? I don't really have anything to be depressed about. My job is going great. My school's going great. My life is going great. My relationship's great. Why am I so depressed? That is a major thing that you want to address with a doctor and explain that to a doctor. I can't watch horror movies, and especially supernatural, because it's too similar to past psychosis. So Jess said that she can't watch certain horror movies or supernatural movies because it's too close to her past psychosis. So she has a really interesting story where she talks about her first manic episode, um, where she saw some really scary things in the middle of psychosis relating to like the devil and multiple personalities. And so I can totally see how supernatural, and that's a good thing too, supernatural movies, because a lot of people who are experiencing psychosis will have spiritual experiences, um, which is really strange, but it's not that strange. Fresh air helps some people, check with a doctor. Hi, Gustav. Yes, a lot of us are empaths, for sure. So yeah, so for dealing with the flashbacks, for dealing with the shame and guilt, for all of it, counseling is necessary. I have not been, I feel like I'm being a hypocrite because I haven't been in regular counseling in a long time, but taking medication is important for bipolar disorder, but also therapy is. While I do not have my own personal therapist at the moment, because it's really hard to find a therapist for somebody with bipolar disorder. That's something that most people don't think about when they think about someone with bipolar disorder. They think, well, they just need to take medication. They need to talk to someone. Well, it's not as easy for us to find a therapist as it is somebody who does not have bipolar disorder. A lot of times when I was calling around looking for a therapist to treat me with bipolar disorder, I would hear, well, I'm really not the right person to treat you, or, I wish I could help you, but just saying that they weren't the right person for me. And I think it's because they're afraid of you, because we have a psychotic illness. We could potentially like go into psychosis and hunt down our therapist, I guess. I'm not quite sure. Or maybe they just think that they need to be specialized, but most people are so unfamiliar with the way that bipolar works, they don't want to treat someone with bipolar. So it's really difficult to find a therapist, but it is important to try. I feel I'm at a healthy spot right now in my life, so I'm okay without a permanent therapist right now. My husband would probably disagree. But when I do have extreme situations in my life that cause me extreme trauma, I go to group therapy. There's a place that I have a resource to me where I can sign up and go to group therapy 3 days a week for 3 hours, 3 days a week from 9 to 12. Have you been able to maintain your job with bipolar? If so, what helps? Hi, Sarah. So I do not have a job currently, and I actually have a video on my channel of how bipolar disorder destroyed my career. So if you go to my YouTube channel and you filter the videos by popular, that one should probably be like pretty close down the list. But it's bipolar disorder destroyed my career, and it did destroy my career. But currently I do not work because, one, there's no way I could ever work again in the field that I worked in before. It was too stressful. And I also burned every bridge possible. So while I did work for many years while I had bipolar, because I wasn't treated for the majority of my life, and I have all this past baggage and trauma, and it is so easy for me to go into another episode. I do not work right now. My husband said, I don't see the point of you going and getting a job as a barista and adding all this stress when it is so easy for you to go into psychosis again. But that's not to say that if you have bipolar disorder, you can't work. I worked for many years with bipolar disorder, and yeah, thank you, Sarah. Um, yes, yes, it's Sebastian. But yeah, I don't work now, but I did work for a long time. But I had untreated bipolar, and that's why bipolar disorder destroyed my career, because it was untreated. But even though I'm on medication, I still have struggles. So I think for a lot of people with bipolar disorder, particularly if you are not, thank you, Eric. If you are not, I'm sorry, I lost my thought. If you are not good being around people, then I've heard a lot of people say like they'll do DoorDash because they don't want to be around people, because it's too much for them to be around people. Sometimes you can find a job where you're working from home and you're doing something. When you have bipolar disorder, you have to think about your mental illness in terms of what career or job you're going to go into. And in fact, when you have bipolar disorder, you have to think about a lot of things in your life in a way to structure them around your mental illness. For example, traveling. Traveling is really hard on people with bipolar disorder. So if you are going to travel somewhere, it would be a good idea to book a flight that is not going to be a red eye, or being aware, having medication on hand if you're going over a time zone, because time zone changes and travel is really difficult on people with bipolar disorder. But there are certain jobs that people with bipolar disorder can't even ever do, like fly a plane, which is kind of sad. If your dream is to always fly a plane and you have bipolar disorder, that kind of sucks. But yeah, I had a really difficult time maintaining my job while I had bipolar disorder. I lost a lot of jobs because of my bipolar disorder. But again, I wasn't treated. If I was on medication, my life would have been totally different. Who knows? Maybe I still would have had an episode. I don't know. But burning bridges should be a theme for next live. Okay. After an episode, you have no confidence in yourself and you fear having an episode at work. Renee said that after an episode, you have no confidence in yourself and fear having an episode at work. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I had a really bad psychotic episode in front of my company, and it was so bad, you guys. I talk about it on my channel when I tell my whole story, but I had a psychotic episode, and I kept showing. First, I just stopped going to my work altogether. I somehow thought I was still employed and still making a paycheck, even though I wasn't going to work. I thought I only had to go to work for an hour and schmooze with people, and then I could go home. And I did really, really strange things, like they had to hire security because I kept showing up at my job, claiming that I owned the company, just completely humiliating. And going back to work, first of all, I went on unemployment for a little while, disability unemployment, under Family Leave Medical Act. My husband helped me get on that during this time with my work. But I remember the day I went back to work, and I remember them telling me, you have to go talk to human resources before you start your shift. And this was my first day back at work after I'd had a psychotic episode, after I had showed up at my job multiple times claiming to own the company, how they had to hire private security just for me. I came back to this job after all that. So humility is something that we experience a lot and have to get used to. But I remember going into the office with HR, and I remember my CEO of the company sitting right next to me saying, Well, you can come back to work, but you know you have to take your medication, right? As long as you take your medication, you can go back to work. And here I am, like 38 at the time, and I'm like being told like a little kid, like, you can come back to your job if you take your medication, which I had to do, and the conversation had to be had, but it was horrible. It was horrible. But yeah, going back to work after that was just it was humiliating. Yeah, I gotta keep on pushing. How does traveling affect bipolar? J- um, so Sarah asked, how does traveling affect bipolar? And Jess said she was supposed to travel to Pittsburgh to LA for a 4-day meeting and got out of it because the time zone difference would probably have put her into mania, and it happened before. That relates to what I was talking about earlier, that if you have bipolar disorder, travel and changing time zones can really affect you. And one of the reasons is we have to have 8 hours of sleep. Well, we have to have whatever is needed for us. Me, it's like 7.5 hours of sleep every single night. And if we don't get what our body needs for sleep, it can send us into mania. And that's what can happen when we travel over time zones. It happened to me too. I had booked a flight. My husband and I booked a flight to go to Mexico, and we had scheduled a flight in the morning so that we knew we made accommodations for my mental illness and my sleep and everything. And the last minute, the airline changed our flight to a red eye. So I had gone on no sleep for like 24 hours, and I of course went into like hypomania, which is a result of traveling and crossing over time zones. Do you have dreams while sleeping? Delta K418 asked if I have dreams while sleeping. Yeah, I have dreams. Hi, Renee, you've been there. Yeah, you're definitely not alone. Oh, okay. Um, Sometimes you guys leave comments on my channel, and then you'll disappear for a really long time, and so I'll wonder like, hey, is that person okay? So if by chance Nancy Gee is out there, I'm just wondering if you're okay. I haven't heard from you in a really long time, and I know you were having issues with your dad's health. So if you happen to see this, please leave a message so I know you're okay. Yeah. Looks like we're getting a lot of nonsense in the chat, so Eric's having. If you are just tuning in, we're talking about bipolar disorder and living with bipolar disorder. I'm going to be here for a few more minutes, but then I have to go. Holden Cox. I'm trying to see what's going on in here. So let me see. We're talking about. Anyways, earlier I was talking about the. Oh, you know what? This is what I want to bring up. I want to know how you guys feel about this. Deltic fornit. No, I'm not gluten intolerant. Here's what I want to talk about, because this really freaks me out. Because I think to myself, hey, I might have somebody who has bipolar disorder in Oklahoma, so this may be affecting them. But there is a bill in Oklahoma on the table that they are currently in the process of discussing, that abolishes the mental health and drug rehab centers in Oklahoma, all of them, and will send all of the medical records over to the Department of Corrections. So this to me seems like back in the old days when they used to take people with mental illness and just lock them up in asylums. So if you are in Oklahoma, try not to freak out about that. It's scary, but hopefully that nothing like that is going to happen. Don't worry until the last minute. I'm sorry, Eric. You guys say thanks to Eric. He's modding the chat, and there's a lot of messages getting deleted right now. So, what do you mean correction like jail? Yes. Yes. Department of Corrections. Yeah, jail. The jail, that's what they call the jail system, the Department of Corrections. Yeah. They want to completely abolish mental health and drug rehab facilities and have all the people's medical records sent to the Department of Corrections, to the jails. Yeah, it's terrifying. Luckily, I live in California, which is a very progressive state. But there's a lot of things happening all over the United States that are affecting people with mental illness, disabilities, with the current administration and the changes in laws that are being put forth in certain states. A lot of people with mental illness and disabilities are being affected. And without me going into a full rant about it, yeah, definitely. But without me going into a huge rant about it, one of the things that people don't think about with bipolar disorder is that we are often diagnosed later in life. And so when somebody does something like have an episode, experience hypersexuality, which can be a symptom of bipolar disorder, and get pregnant at a young age, and they're born in a state that has like anti-abortion laws, or like say Idaho, then they would be forced to have that child. And the reason why it affects people with bipolar disorder is because that individual, that 15-year-old that got pregnant, may have no clue that she's bipolar and that she's passing down this mental illness to another child, to a child that she may not want to she might not want to do that. But the choices are not, there's healthcare not available for women anymore, and it affects people with bipolar disorder. There was also a girl on another channel who was talking about how she had bipolar disorder. This was before Roe v. Wade was overturned, and she wanted to get her ovaries removed because she knew she never wanted to have children, because her mental illness was that rough on her that she never wanted to have children. So she was trying to get this done, and she couldn't get a doctor to agree to do it. She was in a very conservative state, and it just, so my feeling is we're going to have a bunch of babies who are not wanting to be adopted with mental illness is what I think is going to end up happening. But birth control is really important, and it sucks that it affects people with mental illness more so than other people. So that sucks. But it sucks in general. I'm really nervous about what's happening with the law as it relates to mental illness. I live in California, and there is tons of homelessness here. Tons. It is on, well, where I live. It's not in every state. Like, there's not, like, if I went down to Huntington Beach, there isn't a homeless person in sight. If I went to Torrance, there's no homeless people. But in Long Beach, there's a lot of homeless people. There's a rather large homeless population. I think part of the reason is because we have the Metro, which is the train that goes all the way from downtown LA to here. And we're near like the river where a lot of people can set up camp. But a lot of people with who are homeless have mental illness, and it's tough to know, like, we don't want to like throw people in insane asylums and take away all their rights and all their dignity, but at the same time, like, we have to figure out how to get people with mental illness who are homeless on the street help. And currently, someone like myself, had I not been put in jail, had I not been force medicated, I might not have ever gotten better. So I'm in a really weird position to where, like, I kind of like if somebody, like, a lot of people just see somebody homeless and be like, get rid of them, like, put them in jail or put them in a mental hospital where they belong. And that's horrible. What do you mean correction? Do you know any support groups? Yes, Sarah. So what I would suggest, okay, if you're newly diagnosed with bipolar disorder and you are looking for resources and community, there are some really amazing places in terms of social media. I'm going to go on 5 minutes, you guys, because the chat's getting kind of slow. I appreciate you, Eric. He's been having to handle the chat. Yes, I'm in California, Lord Acton. I lost my train of thought. Oh, support groups online. Okay, so there are some really good threads on Reddit. I don't know if you have Reddit, but you can download the app, and what you do on Reddit is you just kind of follow threads. It's almost like Facebook with no pictures, and it's different. You can just talk to anybody, whatever stranger, and there is a group called Bipolar. And if you go in there, everyone in that group has bipolar. They're talking about their bipolar symptoms. So it's a place where you can connect with other people. It can also be hard and triggering though, because it's, the truth about bipolar. And there's another thread, which I can't really go in because it's kind of triggering, but there's one called Bipolar SO, and that is significant others of people with bipolar disorder. So that's a really great resource for people to vent about what they're going through with their bipolar partner. So Reddit is huge because there's so much information and so many people sharing their stories about bipolar on there. So I definitely recommend that. As far as support groups, there's something called NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. And if you go to their website, I think you can find online group meetings there. I'm going to have to ask Jess. I don't think she's here anymore, but I will ask her. But yeah. So another good place that I found really helpful for bipolar disorder is Instagram. I found so many accounts on Instagram that will either have bipolar user in their username, and some of these people have really uplifting things that they have to say, like memes or whatever. And then there are people who will share their experience. There was one girl that I was following who was hospitalized while pregnant, and she was talking about her story. Janice. Hi, Janice. Can you please tell me where your story is regarding the loss of your career? If you go to my page and you filter by popular, it should be like 10 down. But when I publish this, I will put a link down below for the video Bipolar Disorder Destroyed My Career. It's a long video, but I kind of walk you through the process of how each episode affected each job and how each job affected my future job and how I had burnt reference bridges and everything else. Yeah, so oh, you are still there. Jess said she thinks some local NAMI places have online meetings and some are in person. So yeah, so NAMI meetings are people sharing their experiences with bipolar disorder. They can be really helpful. There are some newsletters you can sign up for online. I get a newsletter from somebody called Bipolar Hope. But yeah, Instagram is a really good place for finding, I mean, TikTok's pretty much going away, so you can go look on there, but I don't think that's the best environment. I think Instagram is a really good place to find support from you, other people, because I think the meetings are great, group meetings are great, but if you throw yourself into the social world of bipolar disorder, like Jess and I have done, you don't have to be a YouTuber or anything, but if you are aware of what's happening with your bipolar disorder, you will better know how to treat it. And I think you'll be better aware of what are symptoms and what you're going through by hearing that from other people who are going through the same thing. So that's why I say Instagram, because I found some really amazing accounts on there, people sharing their experiences and their stories and what they've been going through. Okay, so you guys, I have to go. I really appreciate you, Eric, for modding again. I'm going to put a link on this video below for the Bipolar Disorder Destroyed My Career. I really appreciate you guys so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment anything about bipolar disorder. Janice, thank you for being here. Sarah, thank you for being here. Eric, Angel, you went away somewhere, but Justin, thank you. Thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate you so much. And I hope to see you at the next live. Not sure when I'm going to do one again, but keep an eye out on the community page because I'll post there and let you guys know ahead of time. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Eric. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate you guys so much. Bye. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Just kidding. Maybe I do want to be. Bye, guys. Bye.